Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to listen to the NTC podcast. Aaron Washington back with you guys. Excited for another episode. This evening, I have the pleasure of speaking with, I feel like a longtime friend of mine. We've been collaborating on X and Twitter for what seems like forever. But I have Morris Bankston joining me this evening on the podcast. He's a huge Bulls fan, follows the Chicago Bulls pretty closely. He's the host over at the Narratives per 75 pod. So he has a similar thing going on his side with the podcast and everything. So definitely have that connection there. But Morris, man, I'm glad to have you on the pod finally. It's kind of been a minute. We've been trying to link up for a while, but glad you're on. Excited to talk Bulls. Excited to talk the Central Division. Should be a good one, man. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I mean, before we got started recording, I mean, like I said, I'm a longtime fan of the No Trade Clause podcast and the website as well. I think this has always been like a cool platform I've leaned on a lot because I think you do great work with just helping promote, the business side of NBA basketball as well. And so definitely appreciate that and love to, be on here and talk, Bulls basketball, which I know well, but also, I launched Narratives per Possession back in May 2025, and so I've actually sort of pivoted to doing more of a general sort of coverage of the NBA. So it's good to just talk hoops at large with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate the kind words, and that's what we're here for, man. Educate the people and have a good time while doing it. So I really appreciate that. So without further ado, we're going to get into 5 teams of the Central Division on this episode of the pod. The Chicago Bulls are going to be first up for us. I wanted to jump right in since Morris is a huge fan, and we already kind of started talking about them. So let's go ahead and jump right in and see how this team has been doing this season, kind of take note of where they've been at. And we're going to do the same thing for the other 4 teams in this division here, kind of like we did on the last pod, going into divisions here, kind of the same thing. We're just making a tour around the league here right now for the pod. So let's talk about the Bulls a little bit here. Let's take stock of where they're at, where they're going here. So right now, the Bulls are coming off of a hiatus here. Morris and I were just talking about that before the pod. Had a few days off. As of right now, when we're recording the pod, they're about to tip off against the Utah Jazz. So they do have a game coming up here in just a few minutes. But as of now, they're 6-5. They have the 18th offense in the league and 19th defense. So they're a little bit below average, but they did have a really hot start. I believe this team was 6-1 to start. They got off to a blazing start. Everybody was hooping at a super high level. They have dropped 4 straight. Josh Giddey has been out for 2 of those losses. So not having Josh Giddey as the engine of the team definitely hurts them. But for Giddey, I mean, this has been a sensational season for him. He's always been a stat stuffer, but this season it seems like he's taking it to another level. You look at his numbers, 21-9-9 essentially before he got hurt. I think he's probable tonight, so he should be back in the lineup.
He's starting tonight. So yeah, he's back in the lineup. Yeah. So he had a few days off with an unfortunate sort of aftermath of a nasty DeAndre Hunter crossover he's on the wrong end of, but it was brutal. And in some ways I think it was it's like the silver line is like it was a legitimate injury for him, so it didn't go like crazy viral.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah. I mean, it was a viral moment for him. I mean, you don't want to be on the end of a, crossover like that, but it's good that it was a minor ankle injury because sometimes, like Christian Braun, for example, with Denver, it was just announced yesterday that he's going to miss 6 weeks at least with an ankle injury. So luckily for the Bulls, it's nothing long-term, just missed a few games. But when he's out, it is a different look for this team, especially not having Kobe White in the lineup. But speaking of Kobe White, he's supposed to be making his return tonight after missing the first several games of the season. So having him back in the lineup is going to be huge for Chicago. They could use a little bit more of that shot creation, a little bit more of that playmaking there at that position at guard. So that's going to be huge for them. But overall, taking stock of this team, they're really interesting. Morris, I'm sure you've watched them a good bit. And you've seen how their players have been kind of navigating this season. I think Matas Buzelis has been, definitely a bright spot for them other than Giddey. Trading away Levine, trading away DeRozan. I think that's what they needed to do. Good moves last season. So now Buzelis has more of an opportunity here to kind of, figure out who he is as a player, where he kind of fits in with this team. All his numbers are higher than last season. True shooting percentage is up 3%. Now he's at about 60% true shooting this season so far, averaging almost 15 a game, 5.7 boards. Usage is up 3%, so he's getting more opportunities on the ball. So I mean, between him and Giddey, big parts of this season so far. And then there's a few other guys that have been like, I didn't expect them to make the impact that they have been so far. Trey Jones and Ayo Dosunmu have also been solid for them. So overall, their guard rotation is really strong, and I feel like it's been that way for a couple years now. Like at guard, they have so many guys that they can just like rely on to come in and just produce. I mean, Trey Jones, he's probably going to be coming off the bench now that Kobe White is back, unless they decide to bring Kobe White off the bench to get him going again. But I mean, Trey Jones at 13, 4, and 5, like that's really solid. It's almost like he's overtaken his brother officially, Tyus Jones. Tyus has had a rough season, and Trey has really been excelling. So really bright spots for the Bulls. Hopefully they can get back on track tonight. The Jazz are not a good defensive team. They're not good overall. So it's a really good opportunity for the Bulls to get back in the win column. But Morris, handing over to you here for a little bit. What have you been noticing about the Bulls so far this season? Anything that surprised you, stood out to you, overall as they've gone on a winning streak and then a losing streak here? Kind of like a roller coaster of a season so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think up front, myself am sure, a good contingent of Bulls fans were not expecting like that strong of a start for this season, given the collection that's on the roster, given honestly, the one major change other than, the Lonzo Ball trade for Isaac Okoro. That seemed like that was the banner move that the Bulls front office made. And then, they did bring back Trey Jones. There wasn't a lot of expectation I had, honestly, of like there's going to be some massive leap this early in the season. And having had some time to just like digest it and observe it, I would frame what the Bulls have done so far in the beginning of this 25-26 season. I think it's fair to say that there's legitimate depth in this roster right now where like they can go head to head with some more formidable opponents.
Yeah.
The way I've thought about it and the way I'm rationalizing it, the Bulls so far, they've proven that they can take advantage of situations. I don't know if they're at the stage yet where they're elite enough where they're creating the advantages yet. And I think that's the interesting thing that I kind of like wrestle with on a day-to-day basis about this franchise right now is that there's depth there. You can't take them lightly because they like to get they like to do their pasting, they like to get in transition as much as possible and really just try to wear teams down. So there's that. The crux of the matter, I think, even like honestly is becoming like an existential conversation within the Bulls fan base right now is given the way the Bulls started and then they kind of fell back to earth. There's a lot of conversation about, maybe the Bulls need to think about doing a superstar trade at some point this season. And that seems to be like a growing storyline that I imagine until we get to the February trade deadline, it's going to dominate a lot of like discourse about the Bulls. Probably doesn't help that this past week, John Wall, now like I guess semi-retired NBA player, he kind of threw out some tea leaves or breadcrumbs about maybe Anthony Davis, who grew up in the Chicagoland area, wants to return to Chicago with the Bulls. It's a noteworthy rumor, honestly, for that even to come from him because I mean, as far as I know, unless something changed within the course of his career recently, I mean, he's been represented by Clutch for some time. So, Clutch guy talking about another Clutch guy. I mean, I'm not going to ignore that. So that will be interesting to see what is really the direction that the Bulls take because it's been a rudderless organization as far as this current front office regime.
Yeah.
For the better part of like ever since there was the big splashy offseason that brought in DeMar DeRozan, that brought in Lonzo Ball, Brian Caruso, really hasn't been a lot of massive roster turnover. So this seems to be a season where, for me personally, I think the Bulls need to have expectations this year because you've seen like some flashes of a team that can actually do some reasonably competent basketball against like legitimate playoff teams. So that's the thing I'm thinking about right now is like how would the Bulls pull off that superstar trade? I don't know. For me personally, Anthony Davis isn't like the first guy I would go after. I do look at like if you're going to do the superstar trade, really be bold. And I kind of threw out just like a sort of tongue-in-cheek idea out on Twitter just to see how people would react. It didn't get as much banter about it, so I'm just gonna tee up here and maybe it will continue to grow some steam. But I think if the Bulls are really seriously thinking about a superstar trade to be like really campaigning for, I think it should be LeBron James. And I don't say that like in a hyperbolic way at all. LeBron James is an expiring contract this season. He, by reasonable conclusions, doesn't seem like he's thrilled about his situation in Los Angeles to the extent like he's extending there, or he's going to take less money to extend there.
Right.
LeBron James is going to figure out his future pretty soon. And I
Yep.
don't see why the Bulls shouldn't be in on that, because like even if there is like even if you were to get AD, like you're already in the clutch kind of like ecosystem at that point. Like
Mhm.
LeBron's there at that point. And the Bulls front office had the relationship with the clutch from having Lonzo Ball in that organization for so long. So that's one of the first things I'm like I do stew about with the Bulls right now is the superstar thing, because I don't think it's going away, and I think all Bulls fans probably are going to land on some take about it. I kind of think if you're going to do it, really try to do a real superstar trade, not just like respectfully. Like I don't see Anthony Davis as like a number one guy. Like I think they
Yeah.
should go after a number one guy if they're going to do the superstar thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree 100% that I don't want Davis anchoring my team as the guy. I don't think you rely on him. I mean, he's hurt right now. I mean, that's just kind of like the new norm. I wouldn't say it's new, but it's the norm for AD is just to be on the shelf with something. So you don't want that to be number one. Number two, perfect. To be the sidekick. That's how he was when they won the championship in LA back in 2020. He was next to LeBron, and he supplemented him, and that's how they got to the top. Was have him as the defensive anchor, at times carry the offense, but not full time. You don't want that pressure on him or put all that on him. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting place that the Bulls are in. If I was personally running the team, I would kind of continue on this path that they've gone on the past year or so, where you're offloading some of the veterans, you're leaning into the youth a little bit more. Buzelis, guys like that, giving Trey Jones an opportunity, like allowing those guys to kind of grow and kind of develop together. It is still kind of a transitional period. You still have Vucevic on this team. You're trying to figure some things out, but overall, I think the team, I think they finally have some direction. There's more work to be done, of course, but I mean, the past couple of years, it's been the same thing over and over. It's do well, kind of be around 500, a little bit below 500, go in the play-in, losing the play-in, rinse and repeat. I think they just got to get out of that cycle.
Yeah.
I'm sure some Bulls fans would also like to see them, maybe fall off a little bit, not like tank, so to speak, but, be a little bit worse, maybe 12th in the conference, 11th, 12th, not be in the play-in, have a slightly better chance at a top 5 pick or so. And then you really use that to rebuild. I think that if they went that track, it put them in a really good position. But I mean, that's all to come, later on. We're still in the first quarter of the season, so as they progress, I'm still keeping my eye on how these guys grow and develop together, how Buzelis grows, Dosunmu, how Kobe White looks reincorporated into the roster. Having him next to Giddey and these other guys, I think that's just going to be another boost for them offensively. Because I think offensively, you talked about the pace and how that's one of their big weapons. They're a top 10 team in pace and possessions per 100. So leading into that and giving these guys a chance to be successful, I think it's going to benefit everybody. So definitely a fun team, exciting team. I like where they're going more than I did last season. Still work to be done. They still need to do some things. I would hold off on a big splash, because I think that's one of the moves you make when you are kind of inching up closer to contender status, and that puts you over the top, like you're ready to really take the league by storm. Like we've seen some other teams do in the past, where it's kind of like that, hey, like this is the last piece we need to kind of get over the hump. But who knows? Who knows with this team? Maybe they just want to get back to being competitive. Because some teams like Indiana, for instance, I know this season they're bad, but that's because they have injuries, and we'll talk about them soon. But overall, like usually with that team, you don't want to be bad. Like you want to continue to be competitive, and maybe the Chicago organization operates in the same way, to where you don't want to ever bottom out, but you want to be competitive. So who knows with this team? But overall, I think whether you're a fan or you're part of the organization, I would say just like enjoy what's going on right now. I'm sure they'll bounce back from this losing streak, get Kobe White back in, enjoy the vibes, some good basketball. And then maybe as we get closer to the All-Star break, reevaluate, see if it's time to shake things up and, go a different direction. But no, I think right now it's a solid team. I like what I've seen, and I think they'll continue to be fun and, grow together as we kind of get down farther into the season.
Yeah. The only devil's advocate caveat I would offer is this Eastern Conference is a different Eastern Conference. For me, at least, this early part of the season, it just looks like a different sort of conference than it's been in the past, where I find that this current state of the Eastern Conference is really like the fully formed concept that everybody's talked about over the last few years of NBA basketball in terms of like all this parity conversation. This really feels like a conference right now that is absolutely wide open in ways that I haven't seen before. And I think that might be a stable enough justification for, like, if the Bulls truly were to go for a superstar move this season, this is probably the season to do it, because I don't see a for sure ironclad lock to take this conference and go to the NBA Finals so far. I mean, we're early season, right? But it's just if the gameplay that we're seeing from the East right now continues, I don't fault the Bulls for trying to go all in, because this may very well just be the best shot they get for a long time. Because I mean, frankly, from a Bulls fan perspective, and just like how the organization has talked about their posture, how they view themselves, the transactions they've made, when they've made transactions, they're not interested in draft capital at all. They do not prioritize the draft. And so there's only three ways to build like competitive rosters to get you to an NBA title. You're going to draft your way to a title, you're going to trade your way to a title, or you're going to get to the title through free agency. Free agency isn't what, we know free agency isn't the animal it used to be. So really the only option they have, if they want to try to level up, it's going to have to be a trade of some sort. And they've done kind of like, I characterized it when they did the Zach LaVine deal last year. I was covering the team for independent outlet called Bulls on Tap. It was basically like a bankruptcy sale. Like the trade at the time, I did not find that was like a grand return for the Bulls. Now, to their credit, Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, Zach Collins, they're kind of playing their way into like some appreciated value from what was like an uneven return, in my opinion. But it's going to take something more than just like these kind of needle moving list, like non-needle moving kind of trades. Like at some point, they're going to have to risk something. That's just my view on it. But at the same time, to your point, Aaron, there is validity in sort of staying the course as well. And that's why I'm like, that's when I think about critically what my superstar trade look like. I think it has to be like a legitimate all NBA person. It can't just be like, let's not mess around with players 16 through 25. Like the Bulls, frankly, have already seen what a fringe all-star led team looks like. They've done that
before.
Like, I think, so it's either you stick with what you have right now, because there is some modest improvements that you're seeing. And I think to start talking about some of those improvements, right? So Josh Giddey, I think, is actually really doing a great job right now of just delivering on the improvements that he needed in the face of valid criticisms that he had last season. Valid criticisms I gave as well on him in the sense of it was really about two things. One, his defense was not reliable to where he deserved to be on the floor in high leverage moments. And I mean, he was benched for his defense early last season when he arrived in Chicago. That's something he had to work on. He's improving there in real ways, tangible ways. The Bulls game against the Sixers, he had a very clutch stop against Tyrese Maxey that was, part of that, shocking come from behind victory where the Bulls took the Sixers down. And then the other piece of it is his shooting, specifically his three-point shooting. He's becoming a much more improved shooter out of the gate, which that it's still going to take some time for him to start to command the respect of defenses to where they really start to rotate and put two on him because of that. But I mean, he's doing what he must, which is nail those open threes he's getting right now. So I think that's the first part of it is, there is improvement. It's questionable, like how much more ceiling does Josh Giddey create for himself, but that's a big piece of it. And then you touched on him a bit. I actually think Trey Jones is probably the most underrated figure in this start to the Bulls season. I don't know if he's getting nearly enough coverage as he deserves. One thing, like I have strong opinions of Trey Jones, and I'll just start rattling off the one interesting stat about Trey Jones that I recently discovered. Trey Jones right now is top 10 in the NBA in steal percentage. He has, through those first 11 games, his steal percentage is higher than Dyson Daniels, the reigning steals champ. So he's insane. Yeah, he's sixth. Through the 11 games, he's sixth in the league in steals percentage with 3.3 per Basketball Reference. So just right off the bat, I mean, he's like a big part of the Bulls in that run where they go 6-1 is just an amazing motor from Trey Jones. And the caveat I'll add to it as well is Trey Jones, he has limitations as a defender. It's just an interesting thing. Like the story of Trey Jones, it fascinates me because I consider him to be the best individual defender right now at this moment on the Chicago Bulls. And at the same time, he is a limited defender. He's limited in size. He's a smallish guard. He's 6'1". And actually, he's not great at pick and roll coverage at all. I looked up his play tracking data on pick and roll ball handling and defending rollers in defense. Trey Jones is 36th percentile through those first 11 games on pick and roll ball handling defense. Not something to talk about at all, really, not stellar stuff. Right. 8th percentile in defending rollers if he gets switched onto the roller. Not great pick and roll coverage at all, but where he redeems himself is he has an amazing ability, even if he gets screened or if he gets beat in the action, he has an amazing ability to recover with speed and still create chaos and create either deflections or find his way into like generating offensive fouls. He has this ability to do all these chaotic things in spite of his limitations. And so I think that's somebody who needs, I'm going to continue to really, turn up the amplifier on him. He needs a lot more recognition for what he's done defensively with this Bulls team so far.
For sure. Absolutely, man. Well, yeah, a lot of great talk about the Bulls. I'm excited to see where they kind of move on from here. I want to get into a team here in the same division that is, I guess some maybe could see it as a rival of the Bulls a little bit. But Milwaukee is a team that's had an interesting season as well. Just looking at what they've been doing so far, it starts and ends with Giannis. I mean, yes. he's the blockbuster here. He's top 3 player, arguably the best in the league. I mean, what he does is just incredible. I don't think there's too much more to say about him other than just like, he's elite, he's historic, he's generational. And I mean, he's like the most dominant player outside of Shaq that we've seen in this league. I mean, he just cannot be stopped. When he puts his head down, if he has any kind of momentum, it's over. There's not really anything you could do with him coming down the court. So, I mean, he's at 32, 11, and 7 right now. And those numbers, I think we've just gotten numb to them. But I mean, they're just like video game type numbers. Can't even believe what he's doing right now. And he's a big reason why the team is where it's at. I mean, this roster is not great, to be honest, from top to bottom. Miles Turner is solid. AJ Green, Gary Trent, Ryan Rollins has been great. But overall, it's kind of a middling roster. But because of Giannis, they're 8-6. They're 13th in offense, 22nd in defense. So, I mean, they obviously rely on their offense here, and Giannis just gets them great looks all the time. But he's been a big part of this season, obviously. And then the number 2 storyline for me is Ryan Rollins, just emerging as a guard for them. I mean, Milwaukee has been really bad in terms of finding good, reliable players through the draft the past 5 years or so. So the fact that they found a guy like him to come in and average 17 a game on pretty good efficiency, 63% true shooting, also has his usage increased from last season, more touches because Kevin Porter Jr. has been out. Really great stuff from him. So he can create looks for others. He's a great shooter. He's a great creator. So having him starting at guard has been huge for them. Like they needed that bad. Going into this season, I was pretty low on them. I know I really thought they were going to be close to playing territory, But if Ryan Rollins keeps doing this and Giannis can be himself, stay healthy, they could be anywhere from, I think, 3 to 5 in this conference if they keep hooping like that. So, we'll see. I mean, I don't see an elite team here. I don't see a team that's going to break through and represent the conference in the finals necessarily. But, between bringing in Turner and finding Rollins, Kuzma has his moments. I feel like Kuzma is kind of like a mystery box. Like, you don't really know exactly what you're going to get. Like, is he going to shoot 12 for 20 or is he going to shoot 4 for 14? I don't know, any given night. But he's there. He's solid. He has his moments. AJ Green is going to space the floor all night long. You got to keep a eye on him going forward. But yeah, overall, I mean, this team is good. A little bit better than I thought maybe going in. Still not anything to write home about. I see this team as maybe they get through the first round matchup if they get the right opponent. But I mean, that's down the road. Right now, I'm just appreciating Giannis, what he's doing. I'm very thankful for Ryan Rollins. I picked him up in my fantasy league 5 games in and been reaping the benefits. So I love Ryan Rollins right now, what he's doing. But I mean, the rest of the roster is good, but not great. Gary Trent is just kind of, it is what it is. They did lose Torian Prince to injury, so that sucks. He's going to be out for a while for them, losing some spacing there. Big man rotation is still a question mark. Like, after you get past Giannis and Turner, Bobby's been okay. I think he's had a down season compared to what he's been in the past. Cole Anthony brings a little bit off the bench, solid production. He's averaging 9, a little over 9. So it's not like he's anything crazy coming off the bench. But I mean, this is a team that's going to be competitive. And as long as Giannis is on roster, they have a chance to win any game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, at this moment, I view Milwaukee as probably the 3rd best team in the East on the strength primarily of Giannis. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Just what he's doing, and he really is putting together yet another MVP season. I have to shout one of my earliest guests on the Narratives Per Possession podcast. I had Dalton Sell from Behind the Bucks. I believe Behind the Bucks, and so he writes and he covers the Milwaukee Bucks. The big thing that and this was back in like May, June-ish time frame, the expectation he had, and he's really been found to be true on this. He prophesized this basically. Once the Bucks went ahead and did that, shock move of waving and stretching Damian Lillard, the expectation was Giannis was going to become the point guard at that team, and that he has, and boy is he delivering. So much of it is, I think, it is a very formidable offense, and I definitely underestimated the impact that Miles Turner would have in terms of really. He's filled in the shoes of Brook Lopez, what he was at his peak, surprisingly well in terms of rim protecting and hitting those threes. I think that's all they need from him. Honestly, you don't want to rely on him to be, I think, like high leverage offense per se, or ball dominant. But he knows how to spot up and he knows how to knock down threes. And having him at the rim is freeing up Giannis defensively to be one of the toughest weeks, help defenders or weak defenders. Like, he's just loading up in gaps and he's just like destroying team opposing offenses right now. I can say, I watched, the Bucks versus the Bulls. I thought Giannis and the Bucks at large, they were merciless in just how they kept pulling the Bulls into ball screen actions and just destroying the Bulls defense. They just picked them apart. That was really the first litmus test for how much improvement the Bulls had. And the Bulls are improved, but the Bucks are still a legitimate playoff team with an MVP, and there's a gap there that won't be closed anytime soon, unless I think again the Bulls do the superstar thing. But I mean, the Bucks, I am definitely impressed by their offense. Now the defense has a lot of questions, and I watched a good amount of the Bucks taking on the Lakers last night, and the Lakers really exposed them quite severely in terms of how limited they are in terms of defense. It's one thing to score a lot of points and beat up on East teams, but going against a Lakers team that honestly, that's an interesting storyline as well. Where are the Lakers about to go? Because they really are clicking and clicking without Bron yet. it
Mm-hmm.
will be interesting to see what happens when they finally get Bron back and he's healthy. The Bucks have work to do defensively still. They have not solved that. And honestly, I thought that was their limitation when they had Damian Lillard the whole time, because in theory, yeah, you have two stars that like have a lot of offensive horsepower, but the defense that they lost from losing a Drew Holiday, they never recovered that. And I still don't know if they have that quite yet. So that's to me the open question mark about the Bucks over the course of the season is like, can they actually do some things with their roster to return to a more stout defense that, you know, Bucks fans, I imagine, are accustomed to seeing from that squad?
Yep. No, all good points there, man. I think that this team is, set up well. I think their full floor is super high with Giannis. Like they're all going to drop so far. They're not going to be a subpar team, I don't think. I think the offense will continue to churn because they're using that proven time and time again formula where you have the superstar like LeBron and shooters. Like you have that guy and then people orbiting him. Same concept. You throw in Giannis, you throw in AJ Green, you throw in Ryan Rollins, you throw in Turner, guys that can space the floor around him. And if you have that formula, I mean, your offense is going to be pretty good. They're top half of the league. I mean, they're not, anything to write home about necessarily. They're not top 10, but very good, very solid. They're going to continue to be solid. Defense, I don't really know how they solve that. I mean, you already have Giannis and Turner. The guards fight, I think, pretty well. Like AJ Green and Ryan Rollins, like they try, they give effort, but there are limitations there, definitely. And then whoever that fifth starter is, if you have Gary Trent out there, if you have Kuzma, you're going to have problems there keeping guys in front. So I don't think they're ever going to be really good on that end. Maybe if they can get a little bit better out of the bottom third, that would be a great development for them. But no, overall, this team is solid. I just don't expect anything magical. I think we're going to run the whole rumor mill again with the whole Giannis trade rumors eventually, especially if there's a losing streak in there somewhere. But especially if we get to the second half of the season and, they're fifth seed or something like that, just trying to stay out the plan, then, more questions are going to come up. But in the meantime, I think they've done okay. They've done well for themselves. Kevin Porter Jr., we'll see what that looks like when he comes back. I think if you bring him off the bench, there's another bench weapon along with Cole Anthony and players like that. It can give them another element and, maybe help them become even a little bit better offensively. So we'll see how that goes. There's still time to work that out. Let's go ahead and work over to another team here in the division. They're having a rough time of things, unfortunately. This is going to be the 1-12. That's actually kind of surprising to read that sentence. 1-12 Indiana Pacers, their worst record, their worst start in franchise history. I found that out last night, courtesy of Alex Golden, who covers the Pacers, and he has the Setting the Pace podcast. He reported right after the game that it was their worst start. 29th offense and 24th defense. I mean, this team without Halliburton, without Mathurin, without Nembhard until like 2 games ago, without Obi Toppin, the list goes on and on. I mean, you just don't have enough in the tank to really get a reliable offense. Siakam can't do it all by himself. That's just the reality of things. So he's doing his best, but luckily Nembhard is back, and that's going to help to right the ship a little bit. But, I mean, there's so many injuries. I mean, they've had some games where 8 guys are out. Just too much to overcome. And then you have those other guys that you would expect to step up or you would hope would step up, like Jarris Walker, Ben Shepherd, guys like that. And they haven't really been capable of that. They've really struggled. I know Ben Shepherd specifically, really inefficient, just not ready to kind of shoulder the responsibility of an offense right now. He's only in his second year, so it's not fair to ask him to do that. But I would say like their bright spots right now are few, but I would say Isaiah Jackson is one. We were just talking about players that just kind of bring energy and you can rely on to just at least be like a presence in the game. He's coming off an Achilles tear last season, but, he gives you 8 and 6, off the bench. Not bad. That center position is just kind of like by committee. They just kind of like rotate guys in and out. Boston does something similar between Queta, Luka Garza. They just kind of like have a rotation of 3 guys. They just all kind of play 25 minutes or so. So, I mean, they're doing their best. I'm sure Rick Carlisle is doing his best. But as long as they're undermanned this bad, their position is not going to get any better. But luckily for them, they have this draft coming up, 26, and they're set up well to bounce back next season. So it's going to be rough this season. I don't think there's any getting around it. Even if they were healthier, I think they would be below 500 without Halliburton. The engine is not there. Your offense is going to take a major hit. I was on Basketball Reference looking at their numbers, and their assists are down. I mean, they went from a top assist team to below average. 3-point percentage, they're 30th in the league right now. That's way down. Points per game, obviously, huge negatives. So it's just kind of how it's going to be right now. The defense, I mean, they weren't great last season on defense. They were, I think, average or a little bit below average. So that's whatever. But the offense, man, it's brutal right now. I think they'll get better. When Mathurin gets back, they'll be a little bit better. But it's just kind of how it is right now. It's a gap year. They understand. They'll be better, but I think it's going to be a struggle for them, I think, all the way through.
Yeah, it's been quite the free fall for them. And actually, I have to plug another former Narratives per possession guest. I was very fortunate to have the great Caitlin Cooper on there to talk about the Pacers, and her prophecy there, her prediction, I think it actually is worse than what she was expecting. Like the Pacers are definitely like a play-in team without Halliburton, but now, yeah, you add all these other injuries, and the whole bottom of the barrel's falling out. So it's a wild ride to go from the finals to all of a sudden, they're probably going to be a top 5 pick team at this point.
Which they wouldn't mind.
Which it wouldn't be a bad thing given this draft class.
Right. They could get a real impact player there, a guy that can really turn things around. If you pair him with Halliburton and some of those guys coming back from injury, maybe they get a better center next year to kind of shore up that position, replace Miles Turner. I mean, they're back in business. So it's not the worst thing ever. But it does suck as a fan. I'm sure as a fan, you're just like, man, this team hasn't been this bad in a long time, because the Pacers are never bad. You know what I mean? Like they're always at least.
That's not it's not the MO.
Used to.
No. Yeah. I have to imagine the emotional roller coaster of it all has to be rough, because I mean, given how the Pacers lost the NBA Finals in that Game 7, I mean, honestly, I didn't think they were truly out of it until after halftime, and it became clear that like all those guys were gassed.
Yeah.
Hallie doesn't go down with that injury, I wouldn't have counted them out. Like, I think the Pacers could have won the NBA title. So to be that close to taste it, to know it was almost there, and now you're going through this where it's just like, this is the worst basketball experience you could possibly have as a fan. It's got to be tough. And It's just, I mean, like those guys, they just got rest, heal. Maybe there's a shrewd move that could be made, because one of the things that I thought that was interesting of how that organization even built up that title contender, they were constantly tinkering, and they weren't none of the moves were ever splashy, other than perhaps trading Sabonis for Halliburton, because even when they traded for Siakam, there's a lot of ifs and questions about that, and understandably so, because it didn't hit immediately. I mean, they need that offseason to truly gel as a unit and become what they did. Even then, it was a slow start for them last season. So maybe it's like that few gap years of the Warriors between KD and then restocking it to go in that 22 run. Maybe that's what the Pacers look like this season. It's just gap year is not even like it's worse than gap year, unfortunately, at this point. It's a full-on unintentional rebuild.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those like unintentional tanks, because it's like this team, I mean, that they're allergic to that. There's certain teams like I think of like Boston, Miami, LA, Chicago, like they don't believe in that. Like they're like, hey, we're going to do our best to be at least a competent team. Like whatever we can do to be solid, we're going to do it. But I mean, if you're in a position like this, you're missing your franchise player, you're automatically out of it. Like you're not going to recover from that to get back to where you were last season. So they just have to take the hitch on the chin. It's going to be a rough season. It's just no getting around it. But I mean, they do have, a solid roster, and it could be an opportunity for young guys to show off and maybe be a part of next season's team. Johnny Furphy has been out, but when he plays, he's had some flashes. I want to see what he can do once he's back healthy. Ben Shepherd, hopefully he can get a little bit of his confidence back and be ready for maybe a bigger role next season. Jarris Rocker, I'm not really sure what his future looks like. I mean, he's had several seasons at this point to really make an impact. So he still has some time, but I think there's a lot of question marks with him. But I think the number one guy that really needs to kind of show out this season, once he gets back, is Benedict Mathurin.
Absolutely, yeah.
When he comes back, and I expect him to just drop 20 plus a game. He was doing that before he got hurt at the very beginning of the season. So he is, I think, the number one guy to keep an eye on when he gets back. So there's some things to be excited about, but overall, it's going to be a rough experience. They're going to be a bottom 3 team in the conference, most likely. So I expect a little bit of a bounce back. I think once they get guys back, you'll see 3-4 game win streak. They'll right the ship a little bit, but they're going to be a prime lottery team. I think it's just kind of, what they're looking at right now. So switching gears a little bit here, we're going to work our way back up to near the top of the division here, the last 2 teams. The first of which is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're coming off a second round defeat last season. They won over 60 games. They were elite. They had top 10 offense and defense. This season, it's been a little bit different, and for a variety of reasons. But right now they're 9-5, good marks there, good record, 12th offense, 10th defense. So they're just outside the top 10. They still have Donovan Mitchell doing what he does. He's been incredible as always. That's a given. But they've been navigating some injuries. I think that's a reason why they're a little bit worse than we saw last season. Garland missing a lot of time. Max Strus is still out. Lonzo Ball is still going to miss a game here and there. They've had a little bit of injuries to deal with there. So I think it's kind of knocked off the rhythm a little bit. But I mean, they still have a great roster. And I think bringing in Lonzo Ball, we talked about the trade earlier, trading Okoro, getting Ball, that was a good move for them. Somebody to kind of like right the ship and, just play some good, solid basketball when Garland's out the game, or Donovan Mitchell. Really good stuff. And then the Twin Towers are just, all that and more, bringing the defense, Mobley bringing his improved offense to the table is going to always give them a chance. Had to bring up DeAndre Hunter. I know that sucks to hear that name as a Bulls fan. He did Giddy dirty last week with that ankle breaker. I was watching the game when that happened. Yes. And I was like, man, like he just, I tweeted, I was like, man, he just broke his ankles, literally. Like
it was a literal ankle breaker. Like, once I saw Giddy limp off the court, I'm like, oh, that is the worst. That is by far the worst crossover I've ever seen somebody endure. I'm just glad it wasn't catastrophic, but DeAndre Hunter, he really embarrassed Giddy. There's just no other way to put it.
You did. Top 10 play. That's number 1 on the top 10 plays of the day. Like, no question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing with the Cavaliers, I've been a Cavaliers enthusiast the last 2 or 3 seasons. I feel like last season kind of like I can't be burned again by them. Like, to me, it's like it fundamentally is, are you guys really like truly going to stop being just a regular season team once and for all? Like, it has to be at least conference finals. There's just no other way. Yeah, and certainly going to get Lonzo Ball, I think that's an incredibly smart move for them, because with Lonzo's, I mean, having witnessed Lonzo's comeback last season, I thought it was amazing. It's somewhat concerning that he still ended up missing a prolonged stretch of time. But I think the key thing that seems like Cleveland's being smart about is like you can't play him back-to-backs at all, and you really shouldn't have to. You shouldn't need that at all, given Donovan Mitchell, and then at some point Garland will be back. You have your core 4, right? So core 4 just needs to get through the regular season. Lonzo, keep him fresh and healthy, because in a lot of ways, I feel like the move can sort of be like sort of running that playbook that the Celtics tried to run when they went and got Brogdon for that season. It's the same kind of thing. Like, Lonzo in the second unit can do some amazing things, because what you're going to get out of him, he's going to constantly be looking up ahead. He's going to look for head-to-heads constantly. Yep. He's going to take the 3 when it needs to be taken. He's not going to be a ball stopper at all. He constantly does great things. Just keep the flow of the offense going. And, how much defensive juice he has left in the tank, I really don't know, especially with the kind of injuries he continues to endure. You can't possibly expect him to be like primary point of attack defender per se anymore, but he still has such a great basketball IQ that he's going to also, I think, fill in some gaps, metaphorically and literally in the Cavs defense when they need it in those playoff series, those playoff games where it's just like they gotta get stopped from somewhere. And I think he's a perfect kind of person to just come off the bench and be that vet to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, overall, this team has like almost all the same pieces from last year. Really, the only major change is swapping out Ty Jerome and bringing in Lonzo Ball. So, I mean, mostly the same roster, but I'm with you, Morris. I mean, if they really want to prove themselves, especially this year with some of the teams that are down, they have to get to conference finals, hopefully even a finals appearance. Because you think about the real competition, I would think New York is primary competition for them. But I mean, outside of them, I mean, like I would take the Cavs over any other team right now in the conference. I would take them over Milwaukee for sure. I would take them over Orlando with all their offensive issues. Even at 9-5 with a little bit of an uneven start, I would still take them over just about any team. If it's New York Cavs, I think that's a toss-up right now. But with the pieces they have, Donovan Mitchell, I mean, Donovan Mitchell's never been out of the second round. And he's getting into the prime of his career. You want to see him really take that step. So, I mean, this is it for them. Their payroll is so high. They have to make this work. Deep into the luxury tax, you're going to start seeing crazy penalties if they stay in this realm of spending for much longer. So I'm sure management is looking at this season and saying like, okay, I mean, this is really, it's crazy to say because I feel like this core just came together, but this is it. Like you got to make a run here or it just doesn't make sense to spend this money anymore. And we're going to see maybe like a Garland trade in the offseason or, Jared Allen or something like that to try to change things up. But in the meantime, I think that they really, in the short term, need to start to assert themselves as a top team. I want to see them be that number one seed or at least close to it. So, I mean, there's some teams they can jostle with, but I think in terms of talent and the continuity and everything, they should assert themselves to be the number one team. And the rest of the season will be interesting to see if they can really do that. But speaking of the top of the conference, we're going to finish this pod out with a team that is killing it on all accounts, especially when you look at where they came from.
Absolutely.
So if the Cavs want to get to the number one spot, they're going to have to go through the Detroit Pistons. And I mean, what a story. This team is on a 9-game winning streak. They're at the top of the Eastern Conference right now, number one seed, 11-2 as of today, 17th offense. So, I mean, that's, kind of iffy. They have some injuries, but the number 2 defense is super impressive. Ever since they brought in Bickerstaff to take over as coach and have those guys like Azar Thompson in there and Isaiah Stewart, there's been a real culture shift there. And they were kind of like really hang their hat on that part of the ball. And they have that kind of like bad boy Pistons vibe back a little bit. Especially with a guy like Isaiah Stewart. Like he's one of those like no nonsense guys. Like he's going to bring the toughness every night. He's not afraid to lace somebody out if the situation calls for it. Just get a little rough, But I mean, I think he's a great shot blocker, a great rebounder for his size. He plays way bigger than he is. That's something I love about him.
Yeah.
So I mean, Cade is great. We know what Cade has done for this team, but I think one of the really big, almost kind of surprising reasons they're so good is Jalen Duren. What happened, man? Did you just turn into prime Dwight Howard all of a sudden? Like, where did this come from?
Caden Duren, like that's the thing that's this popped to me so far in like this huge run they're on right now is Duren really has arrived as whatever order you want, 1A, 1B, like he is right up there with Cade now in terms of his impact and what he's doing in the game right now. And so they're becoming a formidable 1-2 punch. And that's going to be a tough matchup for the rest of this season. Not just in the East, but really, I think any team because of also the strength of that defense. So it's in some ways, if I don't think there's a team that can ever replicate like 04 Pistons kind of gameplay, but it seems like this edition of the Pistons might be well suited for it because the defense is tough right now. It's a tough defense. The question will be for sure, like after you get past Cade and Duren, like where is the rest of the offense coming from? That's the thing that like they'll have to continue to work on and figure out for the rest of the season.
Right. I think there's some positives in there. I think with their 17th offense, I think there's a little bit of a caveat there. because they have been a little bit banged up. Their last win was super impressive. They beat the Sixers without Kate Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Azar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, or Tobias Harris. They all missed that game, still got the win. So I mean, they've found a way to win games. Like they win tough, they win gritty. They don't need it to be a pretty game. They grind it out. They find ways to win. I think that's one of the hallmarks of a really good team, not just like good, but like a great team. Like if you can win, and the Thunder are a prime example. Like if you're missing key guys, you're down Jalen Williams, or you're down Cade, or you're down Jalen Duren, and you can still win games against good teams. I think that's a clear sign that you're not just like a fake team with that's just like a one off or a flash in the pan. Like you're legit and you're here to stay. So, and I mean, they've been able to weather the storm because they've had some guys kind of like come out of nowhere and hoop. Had you heard of Dennis Jenkins before, maybe like a week ago? Because I had no idea who he was.
I did not, and unfortunately, yeah, he got busy against the Bulls also.
Yeah.
I've never heard Dennis Jenkins before. All of a sudden, now we're in the middle of like the Dennis Jenkins insanity run.
He just took over. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at the stat lines. He had a game against Orlando and Brooklyn. So it was October 29th, November 7th. He played a combined total of 8 minutes in those two games and 3 points. All of a sudden, 3 games ago, they played the Wizards. They went in overtime. He has 24 points, plays 34 minutes. The next game, sorry in advance, against Chicago, he has 18. He plays 40 minutes. He only shot 9 of 19, which I guess isn't that bad, but he had 12 assists and 2 steals. And then the most recent game where they played Philly, he had 19 points on 6 of 15 shooting, 8 assists and a steal in 35 minutes. So this man went from playing almost no minutes to 35 plus the last 3 games. That's just incredible. I mean, this is a guy that no one had ever heard of. He's 24. So it's not like he's a rookie and just all of a sudden, like he's an older guy, but I guess he stayed ready and just was ready to just pounce the opportunity. So shout out to Dennis Jenkins on his play. That's been really incredible to see. A big reason why they've kept rolling. They have 9-game winning streak going. So we'll see what they can do. But I think as long as they have Cade, Jalen Duren doing what he's doing, and then Azar Thompson making some strides, he's been improved as well. A big reason why their defense is so stout, just being like a absolute menace on the end of the ball, and then making small little strides defensively is huge. And then Ivy's not even playing. Jaden Ivey hasn't played since I think the first 20, 30 games of last season. So he's been out for a minute. So if he can come back and give them a little bit more punch offensively, whether he starts or comes off the bench, and that offense ticks up a few spots, oh man. I mean, this team is 11-2, and they still have another gear, I think. So I think we still have yet to see the best of this team, and that's super scary. So I want to take back what I said before about the Cavs like not really having many challengers. I would say the Knicks and the Pistons. I totally forgot about the Pistons, but I would say if the Pistons are looking like this, that'd be a pretty good matchup right there. It could be pretty even.
Yeah, I mean, so at the moment, I tweeted this. So my top 4 teams after like the first 10-ish game, top 4 teams in the East, after the first 10-ish games, it's the Pistons, it's the Knicks, it's the Bucks, and then it's I'm pretty sure I made the Cavs the 4th one there. But the Pistons are just formidable. And actually, something I'll plug very quickly, like this blog post I wrote from theirs per possession. There's an interesting metric that's out there that when I dug into the numbers behind it and kind of like model out like what does this really mean? There's a plus minus that was used by legendary NBA head coach Doug Moe, and it simply was calculating the difference between NBA teams' home wins less their road losses. And so it's kind of like known as the Doug Moe system. So I started calculating that number, and it's an interesting number. Just basically telling you, I think in simple terms, like if you're a great road team, or if you play great at home and you play great on the road, you're probably a good team. But to put a bit more context into it, I looked at like what were those Doug Moe system numbers for bona fide top six NBA playoff teams of the last 5 seasons going back. And there's a floor that forms actually when you look at that number, like the least of the Doug Moe number for any, like, again, true, not playing team, but a top 6 outright playoff team. No team has had less than a +3 in that number. And what's interesting, so then using that just to see who's playing to that grade of a playoff caliber performance right now, it's definitely been the Knicks and the Pistons so far. So that's influencing me greatly in terms of like who I view as the top right now. So Knicks, Pistons, Bucks because of Giannis, and then the Cavs just because of having Donovan Mitchell. Also, that's kind of what I'll be looking at for the balance of the season is, who are these teams that really demonstrate what they're doing at home and on the road, because that's going to become, especially in this kind of like dogfight parody kind of era of the East, I think that's those are going to be advantages and edges that really make the difference between like who ekes out that series win or who becomes like the next Pacers going on this tear to the at least the conference finals that nobody would expect.
Yeah. No, all good points, man. I mean, yeah, the signs are definitely there that this team is legit. I don't think it's a fluke that they're winning like this. It'd be one thing if they were just outscoring teams every game and that's how they're getting wins.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's different if you are winning, playing not like basketball that's kind of ugly and gritty, and you're hurt, you're banged up, and you're still winning. I mean, it's the Thunder formula. The Thunder have had injuries and they're winning gritty. I mean, they have a top defense. Their offense is still top 10, but it's like 8th or 9th, and their defense is number 1. Same thing in the East. The Pistons have number 2 defense, and their offense is not quite the level of OKC's, but that's with injuries and still another level to be reached. So I think they could squeak maybe into the top 10 or so. And if they do that, I mean, they're going to be even more formidable. So Pistons basketball is back. I guess that's just kind of the moral of the story here.
Yeah. I mean, I think defense in the NBA has never really gone away. The steg is different now in this quote unquote modern era of the NBA, but defense still matters. And more than anything, I believe that, this last NBA finals we had really put that on prominent display, because there's no way the Pacers would have been in that matchup had they not made like exponential improvements in their defense. And guys like Nembhard and Nesmith, those guys leveling up the way they did on the wing for their defense last year. And then obviously, I mean, the Thunder, they go and get all-world defender and Alex Caruso and also Isaiah Hartenstein to bolster their defense, because they didn't have a problem scoring points at all, but the defense still was vulnerable, and they shored up those vulnerabilities and go win an NBA title. Defense is where it has to start, I think, for any NBA team that's truly trying to turn around and become an elite team. And that's what the Pistons are doing right now. Is like that defense, you bring yourself up to that tier. Once you start becoming a top 10 defense, there are easy ways to figure out, respectively, easy ways to score points in the NBA. But the defense, like, you can't really, you can't do too much gimmicks with that. At some point, that gets proven in the playoffs with, like, is the defense real or not? So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. No, 100% agree, man. The defense wins championships. I think it's still a true statement, even in 2025 with the amount of offense we have. So, no, I'm with you, man, 100%. So I think that's going to wrap it up for our tour around the Central Division. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks, Morris, for joining this pod, man. It was great having you. A great discussion here. Thanks for giving us your time and some of your thoughts here. So definitely check out the Narratives per Possession podcast. Morris has some great guests, as you mentioned before, and it's a great pod. So definitely encourage you guys to check that out. If you're a fan of the Bulls or just a fan of ball in general, go give him a look. Really great guy to also follow on X as well, if you want to give him a follow. Got some great stuff going on. So thanks again, Morris. I appreciate the time, man. Thanks for
likewise. Thank you for having me on.
100%, man. Anytime. So if you guys want to check out the No Trade Clause content, it's going to be notradeclause.com. That's where we have all our cap sheets and other materials for you guys. And then our socials are no trade clause, one word, on Instagram, and no trade _ clause on X. We also have some content over there for you guys to check out. And then, of course, our YouTube channel. So if you want to get some of these in more shorter bits on YouTube, that's also an option for you over there. So thanks, everybody, for giving us your time and checking out this pod. We'll be back with more coverage and more division overall summaries here on the pod. But we hope to see you on the next installment of the NTC podcast. Until then, take care, everybody.